right, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 4:01 p.m. This is a meeting of the Ways and Means Committee, May 4th, 2020. I'm Otis Wheeler, the chair. This meeting is being recorded. Seeing none.
Otis,
Yes.
you cut out. You said the last thing I heard was the meeting was being called to order at 4:01 p.m.
All right. So to repeat, this is a meeting of the Ways and Means Committee on May 4th, 2020. I'm Otis Wheeler, the chair. This meeting is being recorded by the Ways and Means Committee and by GCTV. If anyone else present is doing the same, please notify me at this time.
It is also being recorded on WebEx.
Thank you, Clerk Scott. Would you please take the roll?
Councilor Wheeler.
Here.
Councilor Forgy.
Here.
Councilor Bottomley.
Here.
Councilor Disorder.
Here.
Councilor Elmer.
Here.
Chairman Wheeler, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. We're going to talk today about the operating and capital budgets for the Department of Public Works, which includes within it central maintenance, the sewer and water enterprise funds. And I'll welcome at this time Marlo Warner, the Director of Public Works.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yep. Yes,
So,
we can.
If it's okay, I'd like to give a quick opening on the current status of the department, the current budgets, and then I'll give a little narrative of the new budget.
That'd be great.
Currently, through the pandemic, we've gone through many changes in the department as we follow the guidance. And so most of you are aware, DPW, most of our functions are essential throughout this pandemic. So we've been running about 100% administratively and engineering throughout the whole process. Some folks working from home, social distancing here at the office. We're back to about 65% workforce. We've been on a rotating shift since the beginning of April. So we have been working all along. Spring came a little early in a sense, so we've been able to do some things. The only thing few things we're not going to respond to is non-emergency household calls and businesses at this point, but we're responding to all emergency calls and emergency work. We're in the process. The deputy director, I see he's here today. Him and I are putting a plan together. Nicer weather's here. We're moving forward to get back to close to 100% operationally due to the fact that we can social distance and don the proper PPE to do a lot of construction projects, especially critical infrastructure. So that's basically the update on the department. Our current budget, the general budgets, I think we're going to come sliding into home plate just under the tag, meaning general budget, highway, the 8 divisions in the general budget on the DPW side and the central maintenance general budget. The sewer budget is going to be real tough. We're going to come in just under the tag also due to the sludge increase this year, which we all knew about. And to back up the bus to the general budget just a little bit, in this month's council, we have an order to transfer some funds to make up for the $60,000 shortfall in the trash disposal contract that came through after budget was set last year. So you'll see that this coming month. I was able to preserve some funds here and there. We knew it was coming, so you'll see that coming your way this coming month. Our water operating budget, I think we're in pretty good shape. So the new budget, we had some fairly healthy increases in the general budget, but I completely tore the budget down and built it back up, trying to find every penny I could in order to make up for the new recycling charges we're going to receive and the increase in the trash that wasn't in last year's budget. I think we did pretty well. We trimmed everywhere we thought we could. You'll see that some of the wage line items are down, and that's due basically to the fact of movement within the department, retirements, or other folks have moved on, so we've hired new employees at a lower rate. So we've been able to cut a little bit of the salaries from the higher paid staff. You'll see in my some of my other line items I've decreased, in particular engineering contracted services. If you recall, we had 18,000 plugged in last year for the emergency action plans for our 3 dams. That project is complete, so I was able to pull those funds back out of the budget. Most of our services and supplies I level funded last year. That's kind of why we're limping along this year. I had to increase a few of them, but nothing real exorbitant. That's basically a segue into the general budget. Water and sewer, just to hit sewer real quick. We expect about another $20,000 increase in sludge this coming year. And our electricity down the treatment plant was also built into this year's budget. It's been a shortfall for a couple of years. So those are the major items. I'd be more than happy to take any questions if we wanted to start with general, Councilor Wheeler.
Yeah, thanks for the overview, Director. I think we will start with the general DPW, and that's on page 118 of your budget books. We'll start with the admin and engineering section, and I'll take any questions at this time. I'll start. So the main increase and is actually kind of, well, there's a decrease this year. Last year there was an increase in salary and wages, which I think was that from moving some positions around sort of within the department. I actually don't recall.
The current budget was basically built upon the fact that we had to go 2 years for the retro pay with the union agreements. I think I recall. So yeah. We had to make up 2 years of retro and the steps that we're aware of. So that's why there was a healthy increase in last year's budget.
That's right. Thanks for the reminder there. Any questions on this section, councilors? And we will there's a lot of sections in the DPW budget, so we may not have questions on all of them. All right. Seeing
Councilor Wheeler.
Yes.
Councilor Forgy has a question.
Thank you. I got to open up my chat window so I see that. Councilor Forgy.
Thank you. I wonder, in a minute, I have to learn to do this too. I wonder if I could just go back and ask a few clarifying questions that was based on Superintendent Warner's presentation. So, Superintendent, you mentioned something about 60K coming out of where? And can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
So, thank you, Councilor. So we had a little bit of a turnover from late in the previous budget into the new budget. So as we had turnover, we were able to save salary in the current budget. So the 60,000 that I'm transferring, I asked Liz to produce an order. I'm taking it basically out of salaries, only due to the fact that, 4 to 6 people, sometimes it takes up to 3 months to hire, depending on all the licensing, the checking and whatnot that we go through. So I was able to make up most of that through the salary line item to transfer to the traffic.
And transferring it to the traffic is to cover shortfalls in the traffic operating budget or salaries in the traffic budget?
No, I'm sorry. I'm taking, I thought you were indicating the trash disposal 60,000. I'm taking it out of salary line items and having it transferred to that line item.
Okay.
Trash disposal is the order.
Okay, got it. but it's in the general fund, right?
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Counselor Elmer.
Following up on that, I'm looking at the trash disposal. I'm skipping ahead and looking at that since we were talking about it. I see the 60,000 increase in trash disposal fees, but there's also 136,000 in recycling fees, which raises the trash disposal budget overall by 200,000. Can you explain those two things again?
Yes, I'll start with the trash disposal. We had an increase last year to 82.50 a ton. We average about 3,600 ton a year. That's an average. And that contract was not signed or settled till after we presented and had budget while we were going through the process, if my memory serves me right. So what I had budgeted was short 60,000 for the end agreement for the trash disposal for the current budget. So I needed to come up with 60,000. And I think that I was talking about that through Ways and Means last year. So the recycling line item is something brand new number that Liz gave me. I think maybe the first council meeting when the new council was aboard, we had to take a look at, it was either the trash contract or the recycle. But recycling, we have either received $6 to $28 a ton for our recycling historically. So what's happened is, I'll make this as short as I can, the bottom kind of fell out. So now we are on contract to pay $93.50 a ton to dispose of our recycling. And we average about 1,450 ton a year. That's an average. So that's where the 136,000 comes from. Now, we're not sure if we're going to have to pay $93.50 a ton per month, or depending on the market, if the market gets better, we may pay less per ton. If the market gets worse, we may pay more per ton. So I took the easy figure and took $93.50 a ton. So if we're over some months under, we hopefully hit that target, or even better if we come in under that budget.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Question from Councilor DeSorger.
So I had a question. I had a question about the trash disposal fees. I was well aware that you were going to be up because the costs are going up. But from 237 to 300,000, this is one of my questions that I wrote. We increased the price of the stickers for the trash, and then we increased the price of the to get into the transfer station. I don't know what, I can't think of the word you call that.
The window detail.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, it just wasn't coming to me. So, you're not anticipating then that the increases that we're paying, that they're going to be enough to make up the $63,000 roughly. Maybe we should have gone a little higher on the stickers, huh? Or that would have been too much for the people.
Actually, there's a good answer to that. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
So the answer to that is the newest contract. We just signed a three-year agreement in January, I believe. It actually came in $80 a ton, not $82.50 a ton for the trash. So we decreased $250 a ton. If revenue shakeouts are where I figured them, we should hit the mark.
And
I hope that answers your question, because we're paying a little less per ton than we thought we were going to when I crafted the budget.
Director, if I may, I just want to clarify for everyone that the revenue side went up. The pay-as-you-throw revenue estimate, which I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it went up 150,000 based on the sticker and increase. So overall, you're kind of trying to hit the mark still. But because is that correct? The pay-as-you-throw fees go back into the general fund, so they're we don't look at them on the same page in the budget book, but roughly the idea is it pays for itself, correct?
Correct. We're not an enterprise fund in the trash and recycling business, but the other piece of going up on fees, taking the increase in recycling out, is that we haven't increased any fees since 2007, 2008, and obviously we know salaries and costs have gone up actually astronomically. So I did a comparison to 10 to 15 other towns on all the fees I raised, and I will say that we're still well below what most communities are. I know that probably doesn't make everyone feel better, but we needed to do what we could do to keep the business operating and maintaining the operations in-house.
All right, thanks for that.
Okay.
We're gonna swing back. We'll get a second shot at trash if we have more questions. Gonna try to keep us on task as much as I can. There's a lot of numbers to deal with. So unless there's any more questions on admin and engineering on 118, we'll move on to the city yard. There's really just a couple slight increases here, one for drug testing. I'm gonna assume is that state mandated? So the change in requirements?
Yeah, that's a federal mandate. They're now doubling the testing requirements for random. So we're
Right.
basically testing twice as much this coming year. It's a federal standard, federal regulation.
Okay. Any further question on the city yard from anyone?
No.
If not, we will move on to the next page, which is the highway department, highway division. So it looks like we have a small increase in salary and wages here, decrease.
Yeah.
Materials increases, but overall we have a decrease here. Any questions on the highway budget?
Otis, just to acknowledge, your audio did cut out for a few minutes, so they may not have all heard the review.
Thank you. I was just kind of giving a broad overview of what I see, which is slight decreases in salary and wages, as well as contracted services, and then some modest increases in material costs, which are still amount to a decrease.
Mm-hmm.
We do tend not to have very many questions when the budgets go down. So unless I see a hand, we're going to move on to Councilor Elmer.
Yeah, no, it's a significant decrease in contracted services. So I wondered if we get can we get an explanation of that?
Now, the highway contracted services, sometimes it runs into, actually, I've done kind of a history on that. That's why that's been cut so significantly. It's a budget line item that 3 or 4 years ago had about the same amount of money in it. And I wasn't seeing an increase in services there, but it basically covers things that we can't cover when it comes to highway potential, a certain repair in a road if we don't have the equipment and things of that nature. So that's kind of where I tried to make up some of my other budget monies on that line item by decreasing it.
Okay. Unless there's any further questions there, we'll move on to the next section. Oh, we got one from Councilor DeSorger.
Yes, I'm delighted that you had a significant decrease there in DPW Highway Division, permanent salary, wages, and full-time. Did you lose a position, or did one person retire, or somebody came in at a lower salary?
So there was probably a 5-month period, Counselor, that I had an opening and we did not hire, so that saved some wages in the current budget. But to answer your question, we had a couple of employees that bid into other divisions within the department as others left. You know, you go through the bid process. Sometimes there's 8 or 9 people or folks moving from division to division. So where this all landed was 2 division employees that kind of at the bottom of the scale. So I was able to make up some salaries there.
Thank you.
It's about 15,000, I think, if I'm remembering right.
Yes, yes, very good. Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to the next section, which is traffic. Any questions on the traffic section? Just a general question about traffic marking contracted services. Does that tend to mean striping, or what exactly does that tend to refer to?
So the contracted services is all your edge lines and center lines you see out there on your roads. But what's also included in that, now if we go back probably 6 or 7 years, we've added a lot of pedestrian type areas to the city, and that budget hasn't increased in that many years. So I had the engineering department do the math, you know, the footages on all our bicycle lanes, head lanes, and stuff of that nature, and we came up with a $7,000 increase because we need to hit those areas. They're definitely all safety related, so that's why there's an increase there. And I think you see that's why in certain budgets I decreased and others I added, and we pretty much, with the exception of trash and recycling, added land pretty close to level funded budget in the end.
Yes, and I would say it's a modest increase for what tends to have, as someone who bikes a lot, especially now, has big consequences for safety, really, and so I appreciate it. Any other questions on traffic? Okay, this is good. We're flying through because I'm sure once we get to capital, we'll spend all day on it. So I'm going to move on to the next page, 120, service division. And this one has a modest decrease to the bottom line of about $7,000, but more or less pretty close to level funded. Councillor Forgy, do you have a question?
Thank you. In that division, there's a line item for tuition, and it looks like it has gone up. I hope I'm reading across correctly. Oh, sorry. I was looking at the actual compared to right now. Okay, but can you tell me what is the tuition used for? Is it licensing?
Yes, all our mechanics under job description are ASE certified, and they have to hit target requirements like any other license. They have to get their contact hours per year. And that also includes a great deal of savings we have in inspection of all our own vehicles here. It also pays for their inspector's license per year. So
Thank you.
I assume a lot of it's going to be online coming up, but it'll still be used.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on services? No. All right. Moving right along. Landfill. This is level funded from the adopted budget of last year. So, and this is contracted services is really the only line item there. Any questions from councilors? Seeing none. We'll move on to waste collection on the next page. Another almost exactly level funded budget. I don't have anything highlighted here. Does anyone have any questions on waste? Okay. We're going to move on to the transfer station. This is just a very modest decrease. Materials costs went down slightly. I know we returned some of the money to the transfer station last year. Has that worked out better this year, Director? Have we gotten the services that we want out of that?
Yeah, so far it's going to be tight, but we're going to be fine.
Good. All right. Any questions on transfer? Seeing none, turning the page to our parks. All right. So we had a fairly significant decrease in temporary wages last year, which resulted in, as I recall, some lawns not getting mowed as often, some perhaps parks not getting maintained as often. It looks like this year's budget, well, it requested almost the full amount, got about half back. So Director Warner, do we expect to kind of get maybe a little bit more done in terms of summer maintenance than last year, or what do you expect there?
The answer to that is yes. I think if, well, most of you that were on the council last year, I had to cut 5 summer help positions to help make up a $50,000 cut to the general budget. There's 2 coming to the council in the current budget. One will be sent back into the traffic division. We did fall behind on our crosswalk painting without the summer help last year. To me, that's kind of a safety issue. We got a lot of blank ones out there. It's a little bit of an uneasy feeling for me. And also one built back into the Parks Department for the 2 that will be coming to the council this year.
Good. I certainly think that it's worth the investment to paint those lines. And I know I heard a little bit, maybe not through the council email, but through my work on the neighborhood association, that people appreciate it when the parks are kept up, and they notice when they're not kept up as much as they have been in the past. So I support that.
And Councilor Wheeler, just for an FYI for you folks, this week we actually put into play more mowing. We brought other staff back in on that rotating staff. They're going to offset hours or shifts. And we're also going to start painting some of those crosswalks with skilled labor this week, just for the fact that social distancing, we can uphold that part of it.
Good. I appreciate that. Councilor, well, we have some sound in the background from someone, and then we have a couple questions, but I want to figure out this sound thing first. I'm not quite sure where it's coming from, but everyone seems to be muted. I see, but there must be people I'm not seeing. Hopefully Clerk Scott. Okay, I think it's gone away. Councilor Elmer and then DeSorger.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question about the tennis court. Probably like a lot of you, I've been getting calls about it. I see it's budgeted, but the lines aren't down and the nets aren't up. What are the plans in terms of the tennis courts?
So we got a couple of things there. Basically, we normally don't get them going until about now or within the next 2 weeks generally, but spring came a little early in March and whatnot. It just so happens we're not getting a response from the company that we pick our clay up from. So there's a lot of things on our end that are affected from COVID-19 outside of Greenfield as far as materials and supplies. But we're able to pick our clay up tomorrow. So we're gonna incorporate getting at least Beacon Field courts done first, because as we go through this pandemic and we need to follow the different guidance coming out, we're not sure where we're going to land on the tennis play, but we are prepared to prep those tennis courts for the community. And
then I know there's some of the work is done by volunteers, like pulling the nails out of the lines from last year. Is that going ahead?
Yes, we'll bring that piece of it in after what we do is we prep the courts. We add clay, prep it, make sure they're nice and level. And then we lay the tapes down. Then volunteers push the nails in. And then in the fall, volunteers pull the nails and tapes up for us.
Okay, good. But I'm still not clear whether we're going to be allowed to play tennis this year. But maybe you're not the right person to ask.
Well, I think, I'm not sure anybody knows at this point, but we're prepared to prep them if need be. Even purchasing the clay, we can stockpile it and secure it for next year. So either way, we're going to be ready to prepare them when we get the word to do so.
That's TBD, Bill.
Okay. And Councilor DeSorger, did you still have a question?
Hi. First, I had, I'd gotten a lot of calls about the tennis courts also. And FYI, I just asked the mayor about that. If they start opening the golf courses, could they do the courts too? But I don't know anything more than you do. But I have two questions. One, tree materials. Is that trees for the tree committee? Because you'd asked for 5,000 and you got 3. Was that trees for the trees that are planted for the tree committee or what?
Thank you, Counselor. So the last 2 years, I've trimmed that budget back a little further and further because we did receive an 800 tree grant, 800 trees in a grant. So the only thing that's remaining left in that line item is what we call the gator bags and maintenance to plant them trees. We plant them in-house. So we need some funds for taking care of the trees once we put them in the ground. So.
I've seen that. I think some of us helped last year, and that's wonderful. If you're going to put them in, they need to be watered. So thank you for that. My next question is on the school grounds. It's 2 different line items. School grounds, Vets Field, and school grounds, Vet Field Mate. Do you take care of all of these school grounds first?
Yes.
Do you do all the school grounds?
Yes.
Okay. And so I noticed that that you got a cut actually on the vet fields. Do you think you'll be able to do that with that line item? School grounds, vet fields, the first one.
Right. That's materials.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
No.
That school grounds and vets field materials is basically historically I cut 2,000 out of that. We did a good push on wood chips and whatnot last year because there's playgrounds within the school grounds also. So we have to maintain a certain amount of wood chip in order to meet standard. So I was able to take a couple of thousand out of there looking at history. The contracted services, if you're all set with that, I'll move to the contracted services.
Mm-hmm.
That's been cut back a little bit due to the fact of at one point in time, there was a contract for Snow and Sons for the high school, for the mowing and all the groundskeeping of the different gardens and whatnot they had. So that since in my transition coming back to the city, that contract was expiring. And since then, that Snow and Sons contract is paid for by the school department. So the high school, behind the high school, we do not maintain. So I take back what I said about the schools. The high school, we're not mowing and we're not taking care of the gardens.
So Snows is actually taking care of all of the fields back there.
I believe so. I'm not sure who they contracted with last year or going into this year. I'm assuming it was Snows again. It probably would have to go out to bid, but I'm not positive.
Okay. And they have a watering system or something in there, that you are aware of? Is that?
Yes, there's irrigation. A lot to do with that contract, just for the history, is when it was put down as sod, our equipment, our heavy duty mowers and whatnot was too heavy for it until that grass was able to take a good root for 2 or 3 years. So that's how that initially came about. We couldn't do it with our equipment without ruining the new sod that was put down.
And has it been 2 or 3 years?
Yes, it has.
Okay, that was, that's all, Counselor Warren. I'm, Administrator Marlowe. I'm trying to get this all right.
Thank you, Counselor.
Otis, your microphone is off.
Thank you. Thanks, Kathy.
Sorry for the interruption.
I had a couple quick questions about trees, materials, and trees contracted services. There's a slight decrease in those line items. Well, actually, the materials hold steady, even though 5,000 was requested, but 3,000 was allotted, and then contracted services was cut from last year, but still bigger than FY19. What's going on with those 2 line items? Is that for tree plantings and maintenance?
So are you talking tree materials, Counselor?
Yeah,
So
materials and contract.
Okay, the materials is, we received that grant for 800 trees. So we don't have much for trees in there to purchase. We have a little bit in there to purchase a couple of specialty trees that may have to be a little larger if we need them. But the rest is for gator bags, maintenance, stakes, materials to get the trees planted and to maintain them, the new trees.
Right.
Contracted services, we use that when our bucket truck can't reach the height of a tree safely.
Right.
We have a couple of them a year that we have to rent a truck. A local company rents the truck to us, or we hire the company to come in and use that. One example is the tree on let's see. Our bucket can reach ours. Ours isn't real fun up there in a wind. I can assure you of that. But that's another line item for that. We have to rent that hire truck.
Very good. Any quick, Councillor Bottomley?
Yeah, I had a quick question. You had mentioned seasonal help and hiring that was cut back last year, and I was wondering if you might be able to clarify some of the things that seasonal help does, because I know they're important.
Well, the seasonal help, they basically mow grass. There's one in water and sewer also that helps maintain the facilities and the beautification of the facility. They do a lot of painting behind the scenes. They generally are the crew that helps out on moving something when it needs to be moved for the other departments. They multitask. They do a lot of the non-skilled labor that can add up to a lot of hours. And we're allowed to keep our skilled labor on the skilled labor. So.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor DeSorger?
I actually this is a question that I'm sure you won't know the answer to, but it was kind of what I was getting at. So do you think, this is just an opinion question that you wouldn't have an answer to, but would it be cheaper or less expensive to do in-house if you were taking care of the school fields as opposed to contracted through something else? In general, have you ever run into that before? I guess I would say. Have you ever run into something where a landscaping company versus you?
Yeah, since I've returned a year and a half ago, we've actually taken on a lot more work in-house, the smaller capital projects. Our money goes a lot further with our in-house staff. If you're indicating the high school, you got a lot going on there. There's a lot of irrigation work. So I think, we could run the numbers. I think at the end of the day, we might be able to save a little bit of money, but we still have to contract out the irrigation and the fertilizing and stuff like that. You get larger machinery in there to do that, to make it cost effective. I mean, sometimes it is cheaper to contract something, But I would have to run the numbers on that potentially, for next year's budget or whatnot, but
Mhm.
there is a great deal of hours put into the flower beds and whatnot in front of that new high school too. Pruning, planting, and maintaining those very large flower beds. That's pretty time consuming,
Okay,
staff wise.
all right, thank you.
Okay, any further questions on parks before we move on? Seeing none, we're going to turn the page to 123, snow and ice removal. So I haven't seen the numbers. How do you think we came out this year on that, Director?
I do believe Mother Nature was good to us in some ways, but bad in others. But I am happy to report that I think we had a pretty efficient operation dealing with all the ice this year. I think we've got some systems in place that are our roads are in good condition. So the answer is we're going to be giving back somewhere around 33,000, 33,800 in this year's budget back to the city from snow and ice. But I will say it isn't always like that. I mean, we could be done with the budget in January and looking to extend that. So we did well, and I'm happy to report that and the conditions we're under and whatnot. So
Very good. Yeah, certainly I wouldn't budget less than that because it did seem like a slightly, certainly less snow than usual this year. Any questions on snow and ice for anyone?
Counselor?
Yes.
Counselor, if I may add, the snow and ice budget gets a little tricky if we do cut that budget. It's the one budget that we can deficit spend in, but it gets a little tricky if we were to cut that budget. But I was just
Thanks. Thanks for that, Director. I certainly don't support cutting it at this time. Any questions on snow and ice? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move down the page to street cleaning, which is the same as the adopted number from last year. And will you remind me, street cleaning applies to the annual street cleaning that happens all around the city, and then also the regular street cleaning on Main Street. What is it? Federal Bank Row. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Any questions on street cleaning? Not seeing any. So we'll move on to trash disposal, which we talked about before, but there's big changes here. So if counselors have any further questions on trash disposal, we could take them now. All right. Counselor Elmer, did I see a hand? Yes, Counselor Elmer. And don't forget to unmute.
This is for you, Councilor Wheeler. Did I understand you to say that the increased fees are more than the 136,000 that the recycling fee has gone up?
Yes, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that the revenue amount budgeted went from 450 to 600,000. And I can actually pull it up if we just take a second here, or maybe Director Warner will find it before me.
So I do have the answer to that.
Go ahead.
So the increase with the trash and the new recycling fee was, I believe, $197,000 for even numbers. So you'll see that I projected with the sticker sales, the trash sticker sales, the entry stickers to the transfer station was somewhere near that number, right near that number, to make up that $197,000 increase in the budget.
Thank you.
That's projected revenues.
Right. Thanks.
Right. Yeah, and actually, so I'm going to refer everyone to this so that everybody knows what you're looking at. If you turn to page 32 of the budget book in the revenue summary, the charges for services, as far as I know, is either entirely or almost entirely the pay-as-you-throw fees. And you can see, and of course it's an estimate, but we certainly expect an increase on that. All right, so unless there's any further questions on trash and recycling, we'll move down the page to cemetery. I know I'm taking advantage of our cemeteries more during the pandemic because they're a nice place to walk, where I don't have to cross the street or wear a mask every time I see another person. So I actually really appreciate all of our cemeteries, and considering the small amount that we expend on them, I'd say. Any questions on cemeteries from counselors? Seeing unless I missed anything, I think we're actually going to move on to central maintenance, which is page 86. So for anyone who's new or doesn't recall central maintenance, we used to get to see Mr. George Vandelander every year, but its central maintenance has now been moved under Director Warner and DPW, which I think makes a lot of sense. And their budget is actually slightly decreased from last year. Anything you want to say about central maintenance before we take questions, Director?
Yeah, there's a few. Whoop. All set?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so the central maintenance budget, it came in a little lower than the current budget, but a lot of things got shifted around. I'll do my best to explain that. There was a lot of services such as what we call the Siemens and a few other electronic, I guess, in the cloud fixtures that's on the heating systems and whatnot throughout the city buildings. A lot of them were all under one account number in the past, and George, who prepared the budget, explained to me that he moved it into some of those into the individual buildings, separated them out so we have a better idea what's being spent on each building, which I thought was a good idea. I think there's only one item in the budget that there was a pretty significant increase, and it's to replace a bucket truck. I forget what line on the number it is. It was an increase of $20,000. It's replacing a 1997 Ford bucket truck that doesn't have an insulated boom on it for the electricians. I think you'll find that was added in. Other than that, I don't believe anything else really had a significant increase.
Okay. Any questions on central maintenance? Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, all right. Sorry, I had the wrong. I was missing one of the pages, so I just got to take another look here.
Yes.
One thing that, oh yeah, I'll let you go ahead first, Councilor DeSorger.
So you do all of the maintenance for all of the buildings?
Yes. Well, I guess what, can you clarify a little better on maintenance? Because there's a lot of stuff that's broken.
No, I really can't clarify that because I don't know exactly what it is. I just have seen it. So I was just wondering exactly.
Well, most of your basic plumbing and electrical is handled by central maintenance. Also, other than that, the building maintenance is also a lot of that. Some of that's under the contracts that I spoke about that are yearly contracts or 3-year contracts for the different softwares for the systems. But we maintain all the city side buildings custodial also.
Okay.
If you have any further questions, Councilor DeSorger, let me know. But I'm going to ask one. One of the intractable problems that we as councilors get questions about are around traffic signals, and I'm sure a lot of those go to you, Director. A lot of them probably go to the police chief. Everyone loves a traffic signal question, but do you think the traffic signal line items are adequately funded in general?
Yeah, I think you'll see a small increase in the traffic signals contracted services. And part of those monies is going to go towards the company that comes in and does the repairs, the emergency fixes, to do a little bit of a study on on the operational pieces of that equipment and see if they're performing properly. Because yes, we receive many complaints for the traffic signals.
Okay, good, very good. Any other, Councilor Elmer?
Well, 2 questions. One, I don't see the bucket truck here. That might be an easy answer. The other is, I guess this is the place to ask whether anything can be done about the slow traffic light on Main Street. I'm sure you've been asked about this. There must be a million ideas, but one of them would be to make it a blinking red light after a certain time of night. There's so many times when you pull up and you're just waiting for the light to change and there's no other traffic. Anyway, this might not be the right time to ask, but you're the guy to ask. So,
well, being that we got that in the budget to take a look at that software that we have in particular the 8 intersections, I can add that to the list to make sure when they go through the software hardware and see if that's even doable with the equipment. And then we can take a look at that. I can make that part of that process. Added it to my notes.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councilor Elmer. That was exactly the traffic light that I was thinking of, even though I have never seen it, but I've heard it so many times. It must happen at a certain time of day, coming from a certain direction. Yeah, the bucket truck, my memory of that was that it was a capital request that had not been funded, and I knew that it was a need and has been a need. I saw that another lease was paid off. I was going to actually ask if the bucket truck should be put in as a lease. But yeah, I'm not seeing that line item either.
Yeah, I'm taking a quick peek. I'm pretty sure I saw it the other day. There's a lot of accounts.
They sure are.
The only place I see it would be in the central maintenance contracted services equipment rental, and I think that's maybe where George put the money in there for a lease. That'd be a 3-year lease, I do believe.
Yeah.
If my memory serves me right, that's where the bucket truck is.
Okay, that's good. All right, any further questions on central maintenance? Seeing none. Oh, One from Councillor DeSorger and then Councillor Forgy.
Okay, I'm looking between different department budgets. And so I'm just flipping the pages. You order all the supplies do you order all the supplies for all of the buildings, the cleaning supplies, etc.?
Yes,
Or,
yes, George takes care of that.
okay, so. All right. Okay, for every building that we have, you order all of that.
Yes, on the city side. And we use, we procure it and do best business practice. Others, we buy it all, but we split it up amongst what's needed in the building.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And Councillor Forgy, do you have a question?
Yeah, my ignorance is showing, but at the top of page 86, it says, assigned fiscal responsibility for the JZCC by previous mayor. What does that mean?
That's the John Zahn Community Center. And fiscal,
okay, so fiscal responsibility means?
I will allow you to try to answer that, Director Warner.
I'm trying to find where you're reading that, Counselor.
Page 86, right at the top. It's the first bullet.
I guess Director Gilman has her hand up. Can you answer this, clarify this for us, Director? Oh, I think your microphone might still be muted.
I am frozen. Sorry.
Oh, okay, well, we can at least hear you at this point,
can?
or I can anyway. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So there we go. There we go. So I believe what that means is that the custodial maintenance of that building has fallen under central services since its construction. So, and there's always supplies as well that go along with that. So the cleaning of the building, as well as the supplies that go along with the building, has fallen under central maintenance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gilman. And I appreciate that because I know for a little while that was sort of in limbo as to whose responsibility it was, especially as more groups meet at the John Zahn. Councillor DeSorger.
Just another conjecture. Just asking. So I don't know this is my first year also, but we're responsible for the whole budget. And so I'm delighted with what you're doing. And if another department was putting in that they needed cleaning supplies, could you or maintenance supplies, could you conjecture what that might be?
Conjecture. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to, I'm not picking out this department. It's the first one that I could find. Just if another building said that they needed building and maintenance supplies for $3,000, and we're doing the maintenance, I'm going to use the police department as an example because it was the first page that I found. Okay, I could be going back and forth. This is a conjecture, not to put you on the spot, but can you imagine what that might be? Is there any part of the maintenance and supplies of the building that you know of that you don't do?
Unless there's special regulatory things in the police and fire department, I do not know. I'm pretty sure we're listed out. We buy the cleaning supplies when it comes to custodial for the police department also. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. And I guess that's it.
Okay, so unless there's any further questions on central maintenance, we'll move to the sewer enterprise fund on page 154. So the sewer, as I see it, there's a lot of line items, but as I see it, the big increase comes from sludge disposal, which we've talked about, certainly, and then also some increased retirement. We are, it looks like, getting towards the point where you're starting to plan the anaerobic digester, which will hopefully impact the disposal fees. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Do we have questions from counselors on the sewer enterprise fund? I have a question that might be for Director Gilman. The increase in the retirement line item, is that assessed by the retirement board? I know a lot of these enterprise funds have indirect costs. Could you just clarify that for us?
Sure. Well, as you know, retirement overall went up significant in 21's budget, and that's just the funding schedule. And right now, it's not done separately. I've asked the retirement board to do it separately. So what I do is prorate the retirement eligible salaries. So I come up with a calculation, but really the increase is what we experienced in the general fund. You know, there's a significant increase in the retirement assessment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor DeSorger.
Last one on this. So under central maintenance, where it says police department contracted services, fire department contracted services, and school buildings contracted services. What exactly could you just explain that?
Yes, we have an example. There's different permitting that's required through the state on different things in the facilities. Elevators come to mind. There's inspections on heating systems that have to be done on a yearly basis and certified, so on and so forth. All those systems are included in that line item for each building. Like I said, they were once under one big line item, but now they're broken out per building of what we perform for central maintenance and maintenance in those buildings.
Wow.
Director Gilman, did you have something to add?
I think it's really great that it's broken out because I have to break apart school costs specifically for the Department of Education. So it does help. I do see the Siemens contract is in there, as well as like maintenance contracts on generators. So
Yeah.
it's that type of thing.
Yeah. Also, HVAC and boiler maintenance comes out of that.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor DeSorger, do you have a follow-up on that?
Yes, it's just hard for me because I'm going between them and I like to make sure we're not wasting anything. Not that I think that anybody is, but when I look at another budget, because we've had other ones come before it, and I see that a maintenance and contracted services to a building is 65,000. I just that would be a school building. I just cannot imagine, or we'll take a smaller one. Maintenance to a like 12,000 for the Newton School. So not that you would know that, but it's maintenance of the buildings and contracted services. Do you find that you overlap any? Do you all overlap any in any way? That would be a good way to put that.
Well, I think the easy answer to that is the school department has their set of custodians under a bargaining unit, and the city side has custodians under another bargaining unit. As far as personnel, none of that crosses, to the best of my knowledge. Obviously, we could, if either side really needed the help, we could figure it out. But so I think that their side of things is what they do as far as custodial in the school buildings. Not to be confused with the maintenance and the repairs that central maintenance handles.
All right. Looks like Councilor Elmer, do you have a question? Oh, don't forget to turn on your mic.
Yeah, maybe you could help me understand the big picture here. We're under a court order to eliminate the infiltration and inflow, and we're doing that by repairing pipes one by one. Is that basically how we're doing that?
So I'll give you a quick insight of where we're at on the I&I issue, inflow and infiltration issue, and the consent order, and where we're at with the SSES surveys, sanitary sewer evaluation studies. So we had to go through a series of studies with camera work, smoke testing, and flow testing, nighttime flow testing with flow meters to figure out where our I&Is come in the different pipes throughout the whole city, which is broken into sub-basins or sections, if you will. So phase one has come in, and they gave an estimated price of lining, repair manholes, replacing pipes, lining pipes of $1.8 million in the first phase, and that was 4 sub-basins in the city. We're currently going through the second phase. And eventually there's a small third phase. So right now we're just starting to get the data in, and we're starting to review it, and then we're going to start putting construction schedules together, which that's what DEP and the consent order, what they want to see done. So that's kind of right up to the minute where we're at on that. I did, not to jump to capital, but I do have $1 million in their request for sewer I&I. Again, the cost came in about 1.8 million, but that does not take into consideration, as we go through the evaluation of the report, what we can do in-house. I think we can conserve some money there. So we get closer down to as close to that 1 million as we can, backing into that number.
Follow up from Councilor Elmer.
Yeah, so we're still in the investigation phase of that, and we're not yet in the repair phase. Is that right?
That's correct. We're moving through the consent order as written. We want to hit those 3-month, 6-month, 1-year requirements that's requested by the state, and EPA is watching also. We want to hit those requirements as written in that consent order. And so far we're actually a little ahead, and that's the way I'd like to stay.
Great, thank you. That clarifies it. And then all these multi-purpose loans that we're taking out at various years, and that we're paying debt service on. Can you explain those?
Liz, you want to take a run at that?
I will. So each year we go through the capital improvement program, and so many things are authorized each year. About every 2 years, we bond for all those things, and therefore comes the debt service. So that's sewer's piece of all the capital projects for those particular years. So as you go forward, it is how we fund it. And you'll see a capital order for $1 million for sewer that we'll get into at some point this evening. That is part of the rate increase I'm asking for, because bond counsel wants to know how you're paying for it. And I will say, well, we increased the rates 20 cents to pay this debt service. But that's where the debt comes from. It's all the capital projects that get improved, and apparently every once in a while, an emergency comes up where you may need something done that would be sewer related. May not have gone through quite the capital process, but the majority of what I see there is all the capital projects. If you wanted specifically to know what made up each one, I can get that for you.
Not necessary, thank you.
Okay.
But the large picture about this enterprise fund is that these are services that pay for themselves because the sewer rates, the 2 million we get in is what we're spending.
Right, and so when you authorize the debt for sewer, the debt enterprise fund is paying for that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councillor Forgy, did you have a question?
Thank you. Yeah, I am actually turning back and forth between pages here. I guess it's a general question about our water and sewer enterprise funds. Is there, I'm looking at the revenue coming in, I'm looking at the budgetary that's there, that seems to be matching. Is there, yep, okay, is there any, what do I want to say? If there's any revenue sitting out there in excess in these funds?
That's what would be your retained earnings that get certified each year.
Okay.
So, and yes, from the prior year, water had very good retained earnings. I will read it to you. Let's see.
Okay.
142,000. And where Marlo, Director Warner, and I have talked about, that's a good place to be in water. And so that every year we do this 100,000 in capital for water, maybe it's time to start working that into the budget versus capital and using retained earnings. Sewer is not as strong as the water enterprise, and their retained earnings, why it went up for last year, was 222,000. That's not a good place yet. So we do need to get that up higher. So that's where it will go. And we do try to do that, you know, to work without going excessively high on rates.
Are the return earnings just for last year, or is it a cumulative
It is
amount?
It is cumulative if you don't utilize it. So in other words, if you vote for the retaining earnings to go to the operating budget and you don't utilize it, it would return. If you vote to use retained earnings for a capital project, no, that's not going to return.
Okay.
Does that answer?
It does, but it also goes into the capital schedule for the water sewer, which was what I was thinking. And as I was looking at it, you know, the expenditures that are being requested and stuff for this, is that coming out of general fund, or is that coming out of the enterprise funds?
Always, always, always the enterprise funds.
Okay.
So you're either going to bond it and have the enterprise fund pay the debt service.
Okay, got it.
You're going to vote it out of their retained earnings if they have significant ones. And I actually am doing that this year. You'll see one of them is out of retained earnings. And one other one, and I'll give you one other source, is out of bond premium. And when you have a bond premium, the amount that is, when I do those every 2-year bonds that Councilor Elmer was talking about, premium is generated, and it must stay with if the enterprise fund generated that portion stays with the enterprise fund. If it's general fund, that portion stays, it must be voted for those usage. So, and you'll see G-site.
Would you explain what a bond premium is?
It's really hard, but basically,
Just say we get the cash.
yeah, the market is higher than the face value is higher than the market, and so therefore people are willing to bid higher than what you are asking for. That's kind of a way to think of it. And after all costs, and you get to deduct the cost of the bonding and all that, sometimes there's money left over, and that's called bond premium. And we have made out well with that in the past few bondings. And it is one source to possibly talk about, I'm going off track here, but one source to talk about possible funding sources for a capital project fund or a vehicle replacement fund, something like that. Because, you know, we stretch the free cash as far as we can go. So, but that is one thought. The other thought too is to apply it, you can vote to apply it against the actual bond that's being borrowed to reduce the bond. That's wise when you're doing a large building.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for that. All right, any further questions on the sewer enterprise fund before we move over? Seeing none, we'll turn the page to the water enterprise fund on page 157. So a couple line items that I've highlighted here. Vehicle lease, and then admin and engineering wages went up. Director Warner, could you just speak to those two items?
Yes, the admin and engineering line went up. If my memory serves me right, we moved, there's the superintendent and the operations supervisor at the wastewater treatment plant. And to sum it up easily, they were one taken out of water, one taken out of sewer, one out of water, excuse me. So what we did was, I believe they're 50% both water and wastewater. So we kind of did the switch thing so that 50-50, they're both coming out of water and sewer. So that's why you'll see in both the items, water and sewer is a little different.
Right, thank you. And then the vehicle lease, I assume that's just a new vehicle for
At the 30,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the third year of a 3-year lease on 3 pickups that were authorized before my time, before I came back. This will be the last year on that. The first year was taken out of general, second year taken out of sewer, and now this third year is water, and then we own them. So this will be the last year on that 30.
Great, thanks. Questions on the water enterprise fund? All right, I'm going to ask a question. Director, feel free to punt on this one. All right. I want to know why the West Street, Phillips Street water main replacement, which is a big project, I want to say it's in the $600,000 range, why it's coming out of CDBG funds rather than being paid for by the ratepayers?
Well, I won't punt. I'll try and carry the football on this. How's that?
All right, fair.
So the The CDBG project is strictly West Street. That's water, sewer. There's a 102-year-old water main on West Street. Cast iron, it's undersized. It could be a firefighting issue. We can tie into, I didn't want to say that the wrong way, we can tie into Elm Street or whatnot to use the larger water main in case of a fire. But anyways, it's an undersized main. There's numerous I&I issues over there. We've done the homework ahead of time on all them streets years back. So there's two projects going on there. One is in-house, one of the $100,000 water main capital items. We're going to be replacing the complete water main on the rest of Phillip Street this summer. We're doing that in-house. So that's an undersized main, so on and so forth, same issue. So jump back to West Street. The West Street is all inclusive. The drain's in poor shape. The sewer's in poor shape. It's got a lot of repair issues. The water main, I think there's a little bit of sidewalk work in that. Our portion, we also are putting a portion towards that project from another appropriation we had of $100,000, working with the former mayor. So we are putting a portion in towards the water main on that West Street complete rebuild of over 100-year-old infrastructure.
All right, thanks. All right, any further questions on Water Enterprise Fund? All right. Seeing none, we may actually be able to move on to capital projects.
Councilor Wheeler,
Yes. Clerk
would you
Scott.
would you like me to share the capital budget pages as I did last when this discussion was with the schools?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll get that up there in just a minute. Are you going to start with DPW or central maintenance?
I was going to start with DPW.
Beautiful.
All right, thank you, Clerk Scott. So we're going to start with what hopefully everyone sees before you, the Sanderson Street reconstruction design. My recollection is this is for a project that would be funded next year of about around $1 million. It includes the replacement of a water main, and it's an important project. Anything you want to say on this one, Director Warner?
Yeah, this is kind of like there's two pieces to this project, from Federal Street to High, and then from High to the mountain, I guess, or Parkway or Park. So this is the engineering and design of replacement of water, sewer replacement, not complete replacement, but some replacement and repair, and also drainage, and then reconstruction of the road on the way through.
Very good.
So this money request is for the complete engineering and design of that project. We did some previous camera work there and some investigation, so we got a good starting point to get this engineered and designed. That too has a 102-year-old water main. And as you know, we got the hospital, we have the middle school, Sanderson Street building, so on and so forth. So we're asking a lot of that 102-year-old main that's fairly undersized too.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in need of replacement. Any questions from councilors on the Sanderson Street design? Councilor Elmer.
Yes, you mentioned that it's $1 million project, but we're talking about borrowing $115,000. Can you explain the difference?
Yeah, the $115,000 is to do the complete engineering and design of the project. And And then the actual construction is going to be the close to $1 million. I'm not sure if that's the figure. I don't have it in front of me. It's on next year's capital. But that's the two differences there. It's complete engineering and design from federal all the way to Parkway on all our infrastructure.
Just to
Follow up.
follow, how do we pay the $1 million? Where does that money come from?
Well, that'll be a capital request for next year, depending how we break it out.
And do we borrow that money
Yes.
next year?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any further questions on Sanderson before we move down the list? And I can't see everyone, just so everyone knows, now that we've moved to screen sharing, I can't see everyone's hands, so you may need to just type in the chat. You can just type a Q, and I'll know that you have a question. But seeing none, we'll move down the list. Smead Hill Road, I believe, was recommended by the mayor to be moved to next year, so we will scroll past that. Okay, this is the traffic and safety improvements, which 68,000 was requested, 48,000 was recommended by the mayor. So that's the number that Ways and Means and the council would be working from. Any questions on this from councilors? I have a few questions. First of all, Director, could you explain the difference for us between the mobile radar feedback signs that we're talking about for this line item and the speed trailers that the police department actually has a capital request in for a speed trailer, which I know that also can offer messages. Is that kind of the big difference?
Yeah, these they're mobile too, and what they mean by mobile is that you can actually attach them to another street sign post or another one of the city sign posts in the tree belt or whatnot. They're pretty mobile. We can move them fairly quickly. So I think I had mentioned during the chief. I was asked during the chief's budget report. We kind of talked about this early on, and we do get a lot of complaints for speeding. And so I put 2 of these into this project, hoping that we could work together with the police department. He can use this as a message board and a warning board if he'd like. But we also could move these around to let people know that they're going too fast when they're approaching them. I will add, we're at 48,000. I have to decide in this project where I'm going to find the 20. And I haven't really arrived at that yet. So that's kind of where we're at on that.
Very good. I like to hear that you could potentially be working with the police department on that. As far as the flashing beacons, I'm assuming these would be similar to what was installed at the corner of Bank Row and Olive Street. Do we have any way to measure the effectiveness of that beacon? In your opinion, has it been effective?
I believe so. I personally have gone down Bank Row at night when somebody's hit the button and it lights up pretty well, even at dusk. Even during the day, it's well seen. Mm-hmm. It does offer the advantage of stepping out, especially at night. If folks use the button, then they're definitely going to raise the attention of the motorist that somebody's in the crosswalk or entering it.
Absolutely. Has this been sent to parking and traffic?
I'm not sure on that. I'm not sure if they've been meeting or not. I haven't received any information.
Any further questions on the traffic safety improvements from councilors? Okay. Question from Councillor DeSorger.
I just want to, we're not on sidewalk yet. We're just talking about traffic pedestrian. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have my question yet then.
Oh, well then, let's move to sidewalk. I'll let you go.
Well, I just saw it coming under and I heard what we were
It's
talking
next.
about.
Yeah. We'll move
What
on.
could you just, I wrote this out. I wanted to know what the planned order on the sidewalks was. 100,000. Man, we have so many unsafe sidewalk complaints, south side of Congress. I told you when you came to, we mentioned when you came to disability access with us, the ones that people were, I mean, they were falling. So could you tell me, and I've had multiple complaints for other ones, which ones you were doing in order and how much $100,000 will cover? Thank you.
Okay, so I believe we're recommending 40,000 at this point.
Mhm.
So the 100,000 sidewalk replacement program had a different look to it than when it became 40,000. 40,000, it became an in-house project, something we could handle in the highway department. And last year we actually applied along with MJ for a mod grant. And we did not get that grant. That's through the Massachusetts Office on Disabilities. So we took what was on that grant, what we applied for. We talked about it in-house, and the 40,000 with our in-house staff, we were going to go after some of the ADA and the mod grant things that were in there, just to stretch our 40,000 and address some of them problems. And on that list, you got Abbott, Arch, Davis, Meridian, Place Terrace, Park Street, School Street, Wells Street. There's different areas that we had listed as issues for ADA accessibility and whatnot.
I'm writing them down. Can you say that one more time?
Abbott,
No, again,
Arch.
I'm just writing the street. Yep.
Davis, Meridian,
Mm-hmm.
Place Terrace, Park Street, School Street, Wells Street. And that doesn't necessarily be all inclusive. If our money's still going, we'll add to that.
And you know people have fallen on Congress. I know you have to do what you can do.
Generally,
Just
when we
say-
have a tripping or a falling complaint, we'll address that. We'll shim it, or we'll go out and do some sort of repair on it. I'm sure we have probably 80% of our sidewalks, we have something in the work order system that we're chasing. And we try to get to them as soon as we can.
Oh, I know. You know what? I so appreciate everything you can do. I hope you know that.
I know.
I think you do. But I knew we talked about this when you came in. We definitely had people that were so nice. They were worried about other people that might be hurt. They said we would never do anything, but she showed me her bruises, and I thought, whatever that saying is, where you spend money ahead of time, sometimes it saves you. I'd hate somebody to be hurt and coming after us. But I know there's only so much money in the budget. So thank you for that.
We also have on our radar to update our citywide sidewalk plan. So it's kind of due to be updated. So I'm sure the list will get longer, but that's something we have on our engineering plate to do hopefully in the near future.
Thank you so much.
I think we have a question from Councillor Bottomley.
Yeah, I think you answered my question. I was curious if there was an assessment or a larger plan, just because there, unfortunately, are so many sidewalks that have been neglected for decades. I know there's a lot of issues.
Yeah, and I'll just speak to this, just to echo what you just said, Councillor Bottomley. I think, disappointed by the reduction in the sidewalk replacement program. In general, the main way that sidewalks are replaced is through this annual capital appropriation, and then also through CDBG appropriations. And they are a CDBG appropriation is going to be replacing a section of Hope Street, which I'm excited about. But I do think it's worth thinking about from the council side, but more so from the executive side, about the fact that $698,000 is appropriated to fix the roads this year, and $40,000 is appropriated to fix the sidewalks. And especially in a pandemic when twice as many people are walking and half as many people are driving, and yet the death rate in the state is higher than ever this year than last. I think we need to think as a city about whether prioritizing this much money towards streets over sidewalks, which I think in this pandemic are not wide enough. It's just a conversation that I think needs to continue. But that said, unless there's any further questions on sidewalks, we will move down the page to guardrail replacement. And this one, we normally try to commit $30,000 a year. It doesn't always happen, and then it gives us some catch-up work. So this year, 15,000 is what's being proposed. And by my calculations here, based on the funding formula that you give us, Director, it looks like we might be looking at doing maybe in the realm of 750 feet of guardrail. Is that your estimate?
Yeah, we're expecting it to be about, the bids haven't come out through the FERCog yet on guardrail installation, but I'm guessing it's going to be between $28 and $30 a foot this year. So that kind of lands us between, well, somewhere from 550 to 650. I mean, they're just rough numbers right now, footage wise. Mm-hmm. We do have a couple of small areas, at least one or two that need replacement that we can use the 15. But believe it or not, out there on the highway, 500 feet goes fast. So,
yeah. So just follow up to that. You probably don't know yet where you would plug that in, but you would assume it would be one of the streets that you mentioned in the either Leiden Road, Silver Street, Plain Road, or Arbor Drive.
Yeah, I'm thinking in the Arbor Drive in the west end of Silver Street is where this money's going to fit. I mean, it's all the guardrail we have on the list is about in the same condition or deteriorating. But we have some concrete bollard type posts down the end of Silver Street that are deteriorating. They're not a real good protector either, and that sidewalk's about 4 feet below the roadway there. So that's one spot we're kind of targeting. And then right near Arbor Drive, there's some old cable guardrail that's in really poor shape. But we'll pick through the 3 or 4 places. Leiden Road also needs more work, but and wherever the number fits is where we'll make it work where we can.
Okay. Very good. Any further questions on guardrails? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is a road treatment truck at $211,000. And this would would basically get used all year round. Any questions on the road treatment truck? Anything you want to say about this, Director Warner?
Yeah, I just want to, Bob Strahan and I had quite a chat about vehicles a while ago when I first came back. We have 12 heavy-duty dump trucks in the DPW yard that serves water, sewer, highway department, and also serves all our snow plowing functions. Those trucks are the larger dump trucks you see out there, the workhorses in the winter. Basic life cycle of any heavy duty equipment or heavy duty truck is 20 to 25 years. This is replacing one of 3 or 4 1996 vintage vehicles we have. It currently, the one it's replacing is currently sitting, waiting for about $10,000 in repairs. We grounded it at the end of the winter, just due to the fact that we didn't want to put more money into this vehicle, knowing this wasn't on the capital, and we'll see where it goes.
Very good.
Our newest large dump truck is a 2013 out of the 12. So.
Yeah. So I guess suffice it to say that it's not the only one that's going to need to be replaced in the next few years. All right. Unless there's any further questions on the truck, we're going to move on to the mini excavator, which is a $75,000 proposed appropriation to replace a backhoe. And it's a considerable savings over a backhoe. So you think this would fit well into your needs, Director?
Yeah, this rubber-tired backhoe came into play. The deputy director had some good ideas from the operational standpoint, and we're always looking for ways to save money, but yet get efficient. It's an interesting concept, but we do that every day and staying within safety guidelines. This was an idea that it's a mini excavator, which means it can turn 180 degrees to load a truck. It would prevent us to having to close roads down a lot of times than a backhoe. Backhoe, you basically put a big pile of dirt in the road and you start pushing it in at the end of the excavation. This also would be a really good piece of equipment for the sidewalks we talked about. Be the perfect machine for replacing sidewalks as we go. But it can do many things. It can work in water, sewer, so on and so forth. And the savings is a little bit less than half of a brand new backhoe right now. It would be replacing a 1996 John Deere with 12,202 hours on it. But I will tell you that it's probably working on its 3rd floor. All the pistons have been rebuilt in it. The drivetrain is still a 1996, and it's also getting due to have all the pins replaced again. It's looking at another, $10,000 to $15,000 in improvement, but we still have a drivetrain that's a 1996 drivetrain. So our thinking here was we can improve our operations and efficiency and save a little money to replace that piece of equipment.
Very good. I think Councilor DeSorger, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. This was the one, it was the one item that you had that was a 2. Everything else was a 1. You needed it like it was between 1 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
All of your other capitals were a 1, so I actually put that in the questions. Not that I'm not on the capital committee, and I'm sure there's a lot of heads that are, work together better than mine. But I look at that, and so I asked that. I wrote that out to you, that question ahead of time. I just keep thinking of the people falling, and we don't get to determine what goes into what, but because capital improvements already decided that. So my question that I wrote to you was, was there any chance that I forget exactly what I said, that was a 2. Was there a chance of putting that off a year? But I guess if it's being put off a year and it's going to be for that, I'll let you just speak to that.
Yeah, it can be put off a year. We're also looking at, we don't know what we're going to have to put into the current backhoe either. We know it's in really rough shape. The vehicle maintenance budget, we've been trying to maintain that the best we can with the older vehicles that I already spoke to, not including some of the older equipment, but the thing is this thing ages and it becomes more and more expensive to get it down the street every day to use it. So I guess the improvement in efficiency, safety, and replacing that 96 backhoe, I mean, yes, I guess anything can be pushed, down the street, but yeah.
Okay, any further questions on the excavator before we move on? All right, seeing none, move down the list to the Fisk Avenue parking lot retaining wall replacement. And this is a $44,000 appropriation or potential borrowing. So Director, it says that this would be phase 1 of the Fisk Avenue parking lot upgrade. Could you talk about what the later phases would be?
Well, the later phase isn't really set in stone. So phase 1 means, if anybody's seen that timber wall falling apart down there in the lot, it needs to be replaced regardless of where phase 2 goes. So we need to address the stairs and that timber retaining wall. There has been some discussion on the phase 2 part of it of, changing the way we park on Miles Street and turning that into green space and so on and so forth. There's a couple of designs out there. I think Conway School of Design has a nice one out there, but that's for further discussion what it looks like after. I just need to find out if that wall is going the identical same place, if we're moving it all so we can adjust what's existing there. But phase 2 still needs a lot of discussion and vision put into it.
Okay, follow-up question. So your understanding is that the retaining wall would not be affected by a reconfiguration of the parking, that in general the retaining wall is not apt to need to be moved in any way?
Correct. The way I understand it, well, we need to replace it anyways because it's going to get to the point here where it's a safety issue. We got some of the beams that are pretty well pushed out right now or protruding, and the stairs are starting to deteriorate a little bit. So it's to my understanding, I looked at the plans real quick, the new wall is going to pretty much go in the same place. So what we do beyond that out in the existing parking lot, whether it be green space or it's repaved or whatever, I believe this needs to get done just because of the condition of the wall right now downtown. And then the other pieces will fall into place later.
Okay, last follow-up question, I promise. One of those pieces is the rec department has asked for site amenities around the city, and that's one of the locations. So again, just confirming your understanding is that if, say, the site amenities were approved in next year's capital, you think they would still be able to be fit around a new retaining wall?
Yeah, I'm not real sure on all the amenities, what they are. I don't know if they would have been part of the bigger reconstruction of that parking lot. But the wall's got to go in a certain place for many reasons. You have the light poles there they need to support, so on and so forth. So I apologize that I don't know the amenities. So
no, that's okay. It's not within your purview, but I will be writing this one down to ask the mayor at our deliberations if she can just speak to or get all of the different departments at least talking about this as it goes forward, because I certainly see the need for it. Any other questions on the retaining wall? Okay, not seeing any. So I think we can scroll Clerk Scott towards the water or sewer, whichever comes first. Okay, so sewer. And we talked somewhat about both of these items already, but this is a big one, $1 million towards sewer collection system repairs. Any questions on this that we didn't cover already? Oh, and then I know there was a question about the sewer evaluation study, the $215,000. There was a question about the Maple Brook repurposing going towards this. Could you let us know where things are at with that, Director?
Sure. So phase 2, I knew I was going to need at least $300,000 for phase 2 of the evaluation of 4, I believe it was 5 more sub-basins in the city of our sewer system. So as we were going through that, the final consent order wasn't signed yet. So in other words, I asked for a 2-year extension on the original consent order that goes back to 2016, while in January of 20, just recently, they came back with the consent order signed, but what they did was they added more evaluation or more work to that consent order, due that it was back in 2016, it's been added to. So technically, at the time when I built my capital, we didn't really know where we were at. We didn't know we were going to have to do this extra work. We had a kind of an indication, but we didn't have any verified numbers or whatnot. So I had this in there as phase 2, but we were able to repurpose the money from Maplebrook and get right on phase 2, which the company's out there was actually out there today working on phase 2. They have been the last couple of weeks. So phase 3 ended up coming in at about 180,000. So originally the 215 was for phase 2, but I would offer up probably within the next 6 to 9 months, I'm going to come looking for the 180 under that consent order to go after the rest of the sub-basins that they want qualified. So I would recommend that if we keep it there, that we knock it back to 180,000 from the 215.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that. It's it's all we can do to wrap our heads around where the I&I consent order is at any given time. So thanks for the update. Any questions from counselors on either of these 2 items? All right. I don't see any. So I'm going to just make the note about the 180,000, and then we're going to move on down to the cleaning of Leiden Glen, which it sounds like would be a considerable savings from the previous plan. You want to just give a quick overview of this, Director?
Yeah, sure. This was one of the lingering projects that was kind of, I guess, in the hopper, as you will, when I returned. And there was many more things we had to get to, as we all know, with the consent order and whatnot. So working with the superintendent down at the treatment plant, we were able to put this project off for another year. But the Leiden Glen supplies about 33% of our drinking water. It's in Leiden, big old dam. I'm not sure if some of you have seen it. But every 10 to 18 years, it has to be dredged because there's a lot of silt that builds up and it affects the turbidity in our water. It doesn't make it unsafe to drink, but it makes it very expensive to treat, from that standpoint. So the original plan was a 5-year dredging plan. And as you can see in my notes, it came in at 1.95 million. And that was coming in and dredging with all kinds of sonars and everything. Personal opinion, I don't think it's that effective. But in order, and we were able to save approximately $1 million by doing it the traditional way. I went back to the engineering firm and said, is there a problem with them not doing it traditionally and draining the whole thing, digging it out and refilling? And they said no. And then from a verbal from DEP, they were fine with it. So it would have been a 5-year plan at $2 million, but we can do the whole thing for, well, just under $1 million, $950,000 to do it in one shot. So I do want to say there was a $200,000 appropriation for dredging the Glen the first year. That also included dam repairs in the first phase of that. The dam repairs are all done. They come in just under 100,000, and we're using another portion of that 100,000 right now to go back through the re-permitting, which is pretty cheap, if you will, compared to the original permitting. It's just making adjustments with the permitting and going back to DEP. So that kind of summarizes the project.
Okay, good. Sounds like a worthwhile savings for doing it all at once. I know Greenfield has great water. I don't want it to get more turbid, although I would have to look up that word to know what it means.
Turbidity, long story short, turbidity, it's cloudy, it gets organics in there, and we got to keep the water looking good. It will have a different taste, so on and so forth. It's not unhealthy, but we do want good drinking water.
Looks matter even in our water.
Yeah, well, eventually turbidity, affects our regulatory, and then we can't use it. So we don't want that getting too high.
No, we don't. All right. Any questions on Leiden Glen before moving on? Seeing none, we're going to move down to the Green River Pump Station roof replacement. This roof's 100 years old. You really think it needs replacing?
Yeah. It's hard to tell how old it is. It could be as old as 112, depends where you look. So the interesting thing about this project was it looks great from the road. And as you know, the pump station sits off the road a little ways. But last year we had a $4,000 item built into the operating budget to remove an old chimney that's not being used because it was deteriorating, and then piece the edge of the roof in as a repair. Well, when the mason was up there to do the slate work and remove the chimney, he put his feet through the roof. So that's kind of when we took a look at it and realized the underlayment, the slate looks okay. It's pretty worn, but the underlayment's pretty much rotted out. So that's kind of how we knew that we needed to do something with the roof. So I did want to add, I did go to the Historic Commission just to make sure they were aware that we're going to be putting a potential standing metal seam roof on a 104-year-old building, and they were fine with it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Good to know. Councilor DeSorger, do you have a question?
I did, but he answered it.
Okay, good. Getting ahead of us. That's what we like to see. All right. So unless there's any further questions on the pumping station roof, we'll go down to the next item, which is Millbrook Well reconditioning, $45,000 from water retained earnings. This is a regular maintenance item. Is that correct, Director?
Yeah, we did the first one last year, came in under budget, which was good. I think the big takeaway here is, you'll see in my narrative, excuse me, we got a 1954 vintage motor running that thing, and the pumps are very old too. So I think from an electrical standpoint, dependability and savings, it goes along with the inspection of the well too. I think this is a good project to update that well.
All right, very good. Any further questions on Millbrook Well? Seeing none, and I believe the central maintenance has one capital item, but it was actually, the questions around it were actually answered by Director Fleury, because it seems to be more of an IT type of a thing. But anything you wanted to speak to on this, Director?
No, I would say that a lot of us department heads were involved in helping Director Fleury put this together. We all kind of said we need this or we need that, and He did very well on suggesting that rather than we all put in separate small capital projects, we put it one together, all in as one. And I think it'll be a lot more efficient. We'll have the same equipment. So that's kind of where my knowledge of that project is.
Very good. All right, it's 6 p.m. We've been at this for 2 hours. I know the longer we go, the more jokes I tell and the worse they get. Anybody have any further questions on, I guess at this point, any aspect of DPW's water or sewers operating or capital budgets? Okay, not seeing any questions. Thank you, Director Warner, for taking the time to sit down with us and for taking the time to sit in on so many of our budget meetings, just in case we have a question for you. Really appreciate it. Appreciate everything that you and the whole department are doing to keep everything moving in the state of emergency that we're in. We didn't even, because we were so efficient this meeting, we didn't even talk about any of your accomplishments. I think the DPW really had some big projects this year, and you know, they're visible. So I thought that that Olive Street came out great, the repaving of Olive Street. I mean, just purely in front of my house alone, I think tens of thousands of dollars were spent making a lot of noise and ultimately improving things at the end of the day. So just want to say thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. If it's okay, I mean, you told me I'd be at least 3 hours. I would like to talk for an hour about the current projects, if that's okay.
Yeah, please give us an update.
Just a few minutes. We're pretty much moving ahead. The Leiden Woods pump station was started. The company has left for a little bit. The AD project is starting to move. Yeehaw. We do have an OPM, and we're working on the design and consultant contractor. So those two projects are moving. I would say the only project that really has come to a halt somewhat is the water replacement program for obvious reasons. You know, it's just not good for you know, we want to keep the taxpayers safe and the employees safe going in and out of homes, replace meters and whatnot. We're replacing the leaky ones that, you know, we get called on. That's considered an emergency. We don't want flooded basements. But and you mentioned the Hope Street sidewalk, that you're going to start seeing equipment arrive here this week and potentially starting early next week on that project from Olive Street to Russell Street, that sidewalk replacement. So those are the major projects we got going on. I&I in itself is a full-time job, but we're moving ahead with that very nicely. Green River Road, they started the shimming today to get ready for the chip seal. If we recall that appropriation last spring, we couldn't get to it in the fall. So that's basically the major projects where we're at right now, and we trudge on. And I do want to let everybody know that it's a very strict set of standards to keep the construction going under Baker's order, Governor Baker's order number 13. The contractors do have to provide us with a COVID-19 plan as well as a COVID safety officer on the site, which is generally the crew leader. So as long as we can maintain social distancing and we can maintain the PPE and whatnot, somewhat of a little bit of a normalcy for us in the DPW right now to see work happening and doing some work. So we're pretty excited. So, you know, we trudge on.
Excellent. Thanks for the update. Would anyone like to add anything? Councilor Bottomley?
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for your work downtown and also the tremendous work with the tree grant, because the grant does pay for those trees, but the survival rate is really incredible because of the DPW workers that regularly watered those all last summer, planted them well and kept them alive. So thank you a lot for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. If you're still here in 20 years, the trees will be tall enough that people will actually notice them. So don't go anywhere. All
You
right.
never know.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for your time. Thank you, Councilor Forgy, for suggesting that we meet at 4 p.m. What a great idea. And is there any other business?
I got one thing.
Yeah, Director.
I think this certainly wasn't written down, but I've been with Greenfield many years, been a resident all my life. I think my fellow department heads and everybody in EOC is doing an outstanding job. We have great leadership leading the way through this pandemic. That's first and foremost. And second of all, I'd like to thank my deputy director and the supervisors who try and keep all these changes in line to keep us working every day. Frontline supervisors and especially the staff. Everybody's been outstanding through this, and I wanted to thank my department for all that.
You're here. I echo that. Thank the deputy director for all the work on the trees. And as always, thank Janine for me. Don't get to see her as often, but everyone loves Janine.
Yeah.
All right. I think that about does it.
And extra shout out to Liz. She's my go-to person behind the scenes. She's always there.
Absolutely. And thank you, Director Gilman, for sitting through all these meetings, this one included. It's really important, even for the few questions that you jump in on. They're generally questions that nobody. So our next meeting is our first budget deliberation. It's this Thursday, May 7th at 6 p.m. It will be held over WebEx. Counselors, write down your questions, your comments. Think about what you want to talk about in general. I'm not going to structure the conversation particularly. So this will be our time to talk through where we're at, and this will be the first of two budget deliberations. I will, at this time, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, 4G.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Director. Thanks, Marlo. Thanks, Liz.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.